Hello and welcome everyone to the fourth and unfortunately the last webinar on stories of use cases. So we're going to tackle one priority that's very close to us and to what we do in a day-to-day basis. So we're going to talk about a Europe fit for a digital age and how open data can um, boost innovation, digital transition, and support this political priority. So, as I was mentioning before, this is the fourth of a series. All of them are ready for you for like to go through them on the Data Europa Academy. So we went through different political priorities of the Commission. We went through the European Green Deal, an economy that works for people, promoting European way of life, or a new push for European democracy. I strongly suggest that you go through these recordings and you see the use cases we invited. But focusing on this case, we will have, I'm very well surrounded today because we have not only winners from the EU Datathon and very interesting projects on how to innovate with open data, but we also have experts from the European Commission that launched a very interesting project on how to support public administrations. So, okay, let's get started. So, just before we go through the program, so that you are aware, as I was mentioning, all this material will be published on the Data Europa Academy. So this webinar will be recorded. For us, for the Data Europa Academy team, it's very important that you provide us feedback in order to improve in the future, to understand which type of learning materials you would like to see, what you thought about the session, and so on, because it helps us to improve. So please stay 3 minutes after the session to like filling or feedback survey. And then for questions, they will be addressed at the end of the presentation of the speakers in the panel discussion section. So please feel free to type on the chat your questions, and then they will be addressed afterwards. So most importantly, as I was mentioning, I'm very well surrounded today by different type of experts on open data. So today we're counting with Maria Claudia Bodino. So Maria Claudia Bodino is from the European Commission. She works on DIGIT, on the Data Information and Knowledge Management section. So she already worked on data science, analytics, and data government as a data government expert for a digital transformation team under the Prime Minister's office in the Italian government. So she has like also this and national experience. She has like a track, a long record on working experience on data industry, both national and internationally. And she's going to present the BDTS, so the Big Data Test Infrastructure. Later, she will talk more about it. I'm not going to spoil any information. We will count as well with Ting Werkhoven. So he's CEO of Lubion, and as I was mentioning, he won the EU Datathon 2022 under the challenge "Are Europe Fit for a Digital Age?" So we're counting him today to explain to us about this project. So he's a public affairs professional who loves building applications for those who want better understanding of the EU decision-making process. So we will get to know more about that later on. And then to finish, we have Dimitris also Michailidis. So he also he's a co-founder of 100 Europeans. So was another application, winning application of the EU Datathon 2022, the open data competition, under the challenge of Europe Fit for a Digital Age. So we are having another winner here in the room. He's also a PhD candidate at the University of Amsterdam, and he's not only the co-founder of 100 Europeans, but also Greening Figures. He has a strong passion for stories and believes that they can be fundamental tool for effective communication. So having said this, I'm going to give this how the agenda looks today. So I'm going to give just a very brief introduction to the political priority, how this is linked to open data, and then I will give the floor to our three experts that they will deliver a presentation about their projects. And afterwards, it will be followed by a panel discussion where we will discuss your questions and follow up from their presentation. So just to go very briefly, an introduction to the political priority, Are Europe Fit for a Digital Age? So it's one of the six main political priorities of the European Commission. It talks about how to drive transformation and digital transition and provide better work opportunities for people and businesses, and how to empower them with data infrastructure, with technology and data. So with the goal of achieving climate neutrality by 2050, there is a strong importance on building upon data infrastructure and technology in order to achieve this. So this is linked to different policy areas such as industrial policy, data strategy, the artificial intelligence, and how to boost competitiveness of SMEs and other companies with the help of data. So they do this with funding. So they have 250 billion euros to boost digitalization with the next generation EU, so 30% of the budget. Then they have different targets such as the data literacy and achieve that 8% of the EU population have basic digital skills by 2030. And then we have other legislative proposals such as the CHIPS Act or the Artificial Intelligence Act that are going on this direction. But on how this is linked to open data, as I was mentioning, this is about empowering people with infrastructure, data, and information. But open data, as we all know, is making data available for everyone, making it available for reuse, to access it, and to distribute it under open licenses. So with this, you're providing the tools and resources to people and empower them with data. This is something we're going to hear, especially from Tim and Dimitris, who took open data in order to drive these innovative solutions. With this, you boost economic growth and provide more competitive advantage to companies and boost the digital transition. But at the same time, it drives and facilitates innovation, but not only for private companies, but also for the public administration to provide better services to citizens. This is something that Maria Claudia is going to talk to us about in a minute. So now it comes to the most interesting part. So we're going to start with our speakers. So the first one is going to be get to know the Big Data Test Infrastructure, BDTI project. So Maria Claudia Bodino, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Immaculata. Thanks a lot to all colleagues and welcome everybody. I'm very happy today to be here because the open data topic in general is something that always passionate me, and also because, as Immaculata was mentioning before, I spent a lot of time working on data from the public sector. So today I really want to share with you this initiative that is called Big Data Test Infrastructure, that is founded by the European Commission and that hopefully could be very useful for your public administration or maybe for starting new prototypes and proof of concept inside your, let's say, team and your group with the public servant, but also professionals working the data field. This is our roadmap. Basically, we are going to introduce very quickly the policy context that Immaculata already mentioned. Then we are going deeper in the big data test infrastructure. And finally, I will share with you some use cases, some concrete application of this project, and also I will spend some word on the BDTI community. So in this slide, you can see a very high-level summary of the main pillar of the policy framework that the European Union is trying to set up in this last year. We know very well that in 2020, the European Commission published the European Data Strategy, where the main goal is to create and boost a data economy, a data market in Europe with different sectorial areas where the public sector and public sector information plays a very important role. And this is clearly underlined in the Open Data Directive that probably many of you know very well. In the Open Data Directive, the main goal is to help and support public administration in publish their open data, but also in try to improve the quality of this data. For example, identify very specific thematic area that are the so-called high-value dataset. There are some specific dataset, for example, the business registries, statistical data, and other important dataset that every member state needs to publish for free through APIs. Then later, we had other different initiatives. One is the AI package that has been recently discussed and approved in the Parliament 2 weeks ago, more or less, the Data Act, and finally the Interoperable Act. All these pillars are really important, and I recommend you to read. You have a link in the slide to have a complete overview about how the European Union is really trying to boost and let's say create synergies between different actors in sector in order to create a data economy, always respecting the main European values. So let's go deeper in the project that I want to share with you today. On one side, we have the policy background and the policy framework. On the other side, as Immaculada was already mentioned, we have the funding part. It is really important to move from hype to action. So we have this Digital Euro program that is a huge funding program from the Commission, where the European Commission identified 5 crucial areas. You can see these areas in the slide, and the specific one where we are focusing today is the AI area, where we have the cloud, but also the public sector data and yes, artificial intelligence focus. What is this big data test infrastructure that we call BDTI? Basically, in few words, the BDTI is I would say, an enabler for a data-driven public sector. It's basically a data analytics playground, free and ready to use. It's based on open source tools, open source solution, and it's completely scalable because it relies on a cloud infrastructure. On this, let's say, playground, European public administration at each level, so municipality, regional, but also central and public administration, can play with their data, can test their ideas, and they can implement their pilot and proof of concept for a duration of 6 months. You know, the name could be a little bit misleading. It's not just about big data. I would prefer to call it, you know, public sector information. So in case you don't have big data, this infrastructure is also good for you. All the public administration at local, regional, and national level can apply for BDTI, and they can independently create a project. We also are trying to foster synergies between academia, spin-off, GovTech, startups, you know, and they can apply together with the public administration in case they have an idea, they can support the public administration. And the only condition is that we need to have a clear collaboration between the public administration and you know, maybe the academia, the students, the startups. That's the only condition we need to respect. So why we can use BDTI? You know, I usually like to present this analogy, this metaphor. You know, when we are playing with data, sometimes we are a little bit lost because we have a lot of ingredients, but we need to have a specific process in order to move these ingredients from data that by themselves they don't speak so much to real information and real knowledge. Sometimes it's very challenging to understand how to put all these ingredients together and how to extract real knowledge that can be consumed by our maybe policymakers or maybe by our citizens. It depends. So you have probably the key ingredients to create let's say, our meal, and we can provide you for free the best tool to generate this amazing recipe together. And even more, if you look at the portal, the data.europa.eu, you can find a lot of dataset, more than 1.5 million datasets coming from member states, and it will be very probably easy to identify interesting use cases to create together with the big data test infrastructure. Probably if you work in the data field, you know very well that we spend a lot of time trying to find workaround and also trying to improve the issue that we encountered using data. Just think about the lack of data skills. Very often it's difficult to find people that know how to play with data, not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector. Very often we spend most of our time, we usually say 80% of our time, trying to clean the data, find the data, connect the dots. And these data sets are usually stored in silos. So the big data test infrastructure could be a good opportunity to try to improve the quality of our data and the interoperability of our data set. Specifically, if you think about the context of smart cities, and during COVID, this was very clear, it was necessary to share together data from private and public companies, maybe related to mobility, And it's very important to define good public-private partnership, in order to then gather the information and try to connect the dots to create a real data-driven analysis, no, that can support our policymakers. This is why we are always insisting in implementing the FAIR principle. So we need to provide, as a public administration, data that should be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. These are some of the challenges that you can maybe easily identify in your context and that you can easily try to tackle using the big data test infrastructure. So again, why you can apply for the BDTI? Because you can benefit of 6 months free of charge cloud infrastructure, advisory and technical support, and you don't need to spend time configuring your, let's say, your environment. Everything is ready, and you can rely on a cloud infrastructure that is high performant. These are basically our main objectives. We really want to help and support public administration in improving the public sector information, their quality, and their usability. We really want to support the Open Data Directive. I was mentioning the high-value data set. This could be a good example where you can play with big data test infrastructure, but also one of our objectives is to foster collaboration between business and government and create good solution for the public good with data sharing and data collaboratives. Even more, if you heard about the new data strategy from the European Union, you know that there are different data spaces that are currently under development, and the big data test infrastructure is also part of this offer. If you are working let's say, in the data space, in some data space initiative, you can leverage our infrastructure to test a specific idea and to experiment with big data prototypes for data spaces customers. This is what we are also really try to achieve with this product. Let's move to the next slide. Yeah, here is something a little bit more technical, but maybe interesting if you are a data scientist or a data analyst. You can see that this is our current offers. We are basically offering you a lot of open source tools that are covering each step of the classical, let's call it, data pipeline, from data storage to data manipulation, and finally for data visualization. You can also find the link, and you can have a more detailed clicking on the specific page in our website. You can see all of these tools are open source, and the main reason is that, of course, we don't want to create any vendor lock-in, but also we want to invest in sustainability. So after the 6 months, you can easily continue your development without spending a lot of money for, let's say, buying different tools. Let's go more in practice. This is this you can see some screenshot from the web interface. Basically, you just need to connect with your browser. We will create for you a specific sandbox based on EU login. So you will share with us the username and all the list of your team members. You will just access the platform. It's just a basic website, nothing difficult. You will see the different services, and you can easily start all the product that I was showing before. You have a sort of, let's say, service catalog. You can easily click and enable instances of this product. And in the background, in the back end, these tools are speaking each other. So you don't need to configure them. You don't need to say, you need to use this IP, this specific port, because everything is already set up for you. Usually when we deliver a presentation like today, we also like to create a sort of storytelling. So we have, two personas. We have Elena and Daniel, and they are two public servants from Dublin municipality with a low data literacy skills. They have to support the municipality in order to reduce the spending in public lighting. So they try to use the big data test infrastructure in order to understand how to optimize the public lighting and so reduce the money, the public money spent in public lighting. This is a concrete example. We have Helena. Helena is looking around for collecting information and data that could be important for this concrete use case. And she found a lot of paper documents based, like invoices, so basically information that are not digital. And she started using the big data test infrastructure, trying to digitalize and to have in a machine readable format this information from paper based invoices. She created a pipeline using some of the tools that we are offering that are called NIME Analytics, Postgre, and Apache Superset in order to combine different information and then finally visualize and summarize these main findings in a dashboard. So something very basic. She created this data flow. Maybe this sounds a little bit weird to you, but it's nothing crazy again. It's just like playing with Lego. You have different building blocks. You connect the different functions you want to perform. And running this, let's say, workflow, you will be able to digitalize your paper-based documents. Finally, she started working together with her colleagues on Superset, that is another open source tool for data visualization, and she started creating and drafting some, let's say, useful data visualization tools. That's why we really like to use examples that are concrete and tangible. Again, she tried to develop different kind of indicators and KPIs. For example, also looking at the expenditure and the time series that they can easily analyze using historical data. That's an example, but then I will share with you some some other use cases that we develop with the public administration in Europe. The BDTI community is another important pillar of this project, of course. We are trying to develop together with public administration an ecosystem where we would really like to have academia, students that maybe are doing their master thesis or their PhDs, helping public sector in developing data analytics solution. So in case you are a student, in case you are a startup and you want to have a free infrastructure to support the public administration, this is for you. If you are working for the public administration and you need an infrastructure for data analytics, please contact us to this email and we are more than happy to explain better the project and how you can apply. We are also trying to deliver differentiation with member states. This is just one example from Slovenia, where we present the initiative and also we work together on some concrete use case from Slovenia. We developed a canvas. It's basically a, probably very well business canvas. This is more for data analytics. We try to identify important aspects that you need to assess together with your team. And this canvas is you can find it on our website. You can download it and you can use it to identify better and define better your use case. Who use it already? We had in the past some use cases, also during COVID time. We have, for example, some public administration from Spain using BDTI to perform text mining analytics. So in order to extract information from a huge amount of documents and text data. We also have some smart cities using use cases more focused on mobility. So basically trying to gather different data sources related to citizen and mobility and extract relevant information about population in the let's say smart city context. There is another recent prototypes that has been developed with big data test infrastructure that is about public procurement. That is also one of the most advanced data spaces in the European data strategy. You can find the reference to this paper, and this prototype was mainly focused in trying to assess the quality of procurement data that member states are obliged to publish, and to try to, let's say, move this data and align this data to a specific ontology that is the one used for e-procurement in Europe. How to apply? Very straightforward. You can have a look to our website. You can understand a little bit better what I was trying to tell you in this presentation. Then you can just submit your request. We have a specific template. After you submit this request, we are going to review it, and then we are going to set up a meeting with you to discuss more in detail what you would like to develop. Once that the idea is being approved, your test environment will be ready in few days, and then you can finally start analyzing and creating your data proof of concept or data analytics prototype. One final, let's say, communication is about another interesting initiative we are also running in the context of the Digital Innovation Lab from the Commission, and it's very close to data skills. We are running this series of iTalks on data skills initiative. In case you are curious, today we have our fourth session. It's at 1:30. Feel free to subscribe and to spread this initiative in your networks. I would say that's all from my side. Thanks a lot for your attention. Here you can find the QR code for the Big Data Test Infrastructure website. Here you can find the Big Data Test Infrastructure join up page, where we are trying to build this community that I was trying to explain before. Thanks a lot again, and feel free to ask questions or to drop us an email in case you want to know a little bit more. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Maria Claudia, for this insightful project that brings like a lot of value to to data and brings these open source tools to public administrations. I only have one question that actually is related to one question from the audience. So, as I understood, like, this is free to access for like European public administrations. So we mean EU institutions, Parliament, Commission, but at the same time national, regional, local administrations, which is good because we have different levels of access and which facilitate data sharing. But you mentioned that also SMEs, academia, and sometimes they can have access to it if there is a link with the public administration work. Can you elaborate more on that or give us an example to understand more or less the scope and just to give the audience an understanding about who can apply to this service?
Yes, so probably better than me that very often public administration, specifically small and medium public administration, like municipality or sometimes regions, they don't have the necessary infrastructure, but also they don't have mainly, I would say, the necessary skills in order to develop data analytics and data science project. So this is why we are really convinced about the, let's say, the connection with the academia world, with students that maybe are developing their thesis or their PhD project in something that is somehow related to public good. So in
Hmm.
case they can meet together and also try to check how they can collaborate together. This is even more relevant if you think about the GovTech area, where usually public administration go to find data scientists, data analysts, and people working in the data industry to implement what they need to do. It's not just about data analytics analysis. I will also try to stress the fact that with big data test infrastructure, you can also focus on developing prototype for new services for citizens. Maybe try to understand better the processes that are currently running in your public administration.
Hmm.
So again, the only condition is that we need to have one public administration, even more. We are more than happy to have cross-border collaboration, for example, but at least we need to have one public administration. So then it's up to you if you are a GovTech startup to find a public administration and come to us to propose the project,
Hmm.
or maybe a student or a professor in a master, and again find the right collaboration and then contact us. I hope this
That's
clarified. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it really clarifies, and we can see actually that there are other sectors that could be also interested on this platform, in this open source solution, and then they can have access under this condition. Okay,
Correct.
thank you very much. We have more questions, but I think we can move them for the panel discussion. So now we're moving to Tim Verhoeven. So he's going to talk to us about Lobion and what is his project about. So Tim, the floor is yours. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you're muted now.
thank you, Ingmar. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to talk to you about our use cases and our company journey in using EU open data, and also close off with several improvements that can be made across the board when it comes to providing open data, unlocking it, and using it. But already I saw that Maria talked a lot about the things and the improvements that are really necessary for that, but I'll expand a bit on that. So last year, I'm Tim Workhoven, CEO of Lobium, and together with GovAguy last year, that's a company that is about multilingual text analytics. We won the EU Datathon Challenge for the EU or the Europe Fit for a Digital Age. And that really chimes with our vision, because we are about making a better use of data. Combining data sources is the key to solving many of the problems that we face. And we heard already some examples of that. And Lobium is also committed to that. So we believe that data must work harder for public affairs management, for transparency of data. Better quality, smarter data analytics will help companies and EU citizens understand better the decision-making process. And that's where we build our applications. Also, data must work harder to preserve democracy. We have a deep commitment to support that transparency in government. It's also in our interest, right? Because the better democracy functions, the more transparent it is, the better we can use data to build those applications and intelligence that benefits wider society. Because we are a for-profit organization, so that's in our interest, and it's in the interest of the wider society. And thirdly, data must work harder for net zero. Also very important, climate change is an emergency and we must get to net zero quickly. So therefore, unlocking data is probably one of the key things to solving those big problems there. So if we go to our journey, we could see that we started out with figuring out and looking at data sets and how we can, let's say, realize the vision and building applications to realize that vision. Actually, if you look at this slide, there should be a block before using open data, transforming that data, and then building the applications for users. It all starts with defining a use case, because it needs to be usable for users. And a lot of people and a lot of organizations think of it the other way around. They think about, what kind of technology is there available? And based on that technology, we're going to build some things that may be useful. But I think it's much better to start with just thinking about the real life use case of a group or part of society that has a problem and that needs to solve. So looking at the workflows and trying to figure out what can we improve with digitalization, how can we make things better, smarter, or work faster. And then the second step is what we did is we defined our use case in, let's say, the lack of understanding in EU open, EU decision making for EU citizens. And the lack of understanding leads to misinformation and bad decision making. So, and we've got, we have extreme outcomes, extreme dire outcomes of that. Look at the Brexit vote in the UK, for example, where there was a lot of misinformation around, or look at the situation in Hungary. And I think last year in the State of the Union of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen specifically mentioned misinformation and the problems that arise with that. So our use case was, how can we help journalists, EU investigative journalists, to better inform the public, the EU citizens, about the decision-making process so that these problems don't arise in the future. So that was our use case. And then we looked at open data from the EU Commission and started to figure out how can we, let's say, make it more transparent what stakeholders' views are around certain aspects or certain proposals that are coming out of the European Commission and the European Union. And then we looked at the Have Your Say database and we pulled all that data in, and then we transformed that data. So just good old data science, but also building scrapers and building, let's say, the infrastructure in our cloud in order to, let's say, transform that data into an application. And we also, together with GovAguy, we built specific natural language processing models. And for those of you that don't know about it, NLP, natural language processing models are used for understanding human written text. And of course, at the EU level in decision making, we're talking about loads of text, big volumes of human written text, draft legislations. We're talking about position papers of stakeholders, and all that needs to be understood because there's so much around, and maybe NLP can help us. So we developed natural language processing models together with GovAguy in order to transform that data into an application, which we call the stakeholder issue analysis matrix, where we could tell which stakeholders are talking about which issues around a commission proposal, and are they in favor or against that. So the models that we built were around topic modeling or discovery of topics within large corpus of text, and then the second stage is to see how if stakeholders are in favor or against those different topics. So we're talking about stance analysis. And since then, we've provided that to journalists, and it helps them speed up their reporting about it, and therefore informing EU citizens better about what is going on around the EU decision-making process. The cloud infrastructure that we have is based on a microservice structure, for those who want to know that, and the architecture helps, let's say a microservice architecture helps with scaling up for using this data and using other data sets for future applications. One of those future applications, well, actually, it's live at the moment, is what you can see here as well, is the EU Parliament Analyzer. So first, we were looking at data from the European Commission published on the EU Have Your Say website. Now we have built an EU Parliament Amendment Analyzer. So using Parliament data, which is further down the decision-making process, and going through European Parliament decision-making processes and specifically amendments to help users better understand what is going on and how decisions are made in Parliament and what the priorities are there. So we are now live with that as well, and it really helps speeding up your analysis in that sense. And it's interesting to know that, interesting to note that recently the European Parliament has opened its own open data portal. I'll speak more about that later when it comes to improvements, but I think this is a really big deal where the European Parliament has started to open up its data in a more systematic way with an open data portal and documentation about how to connect to the APIs and so on. So that is, I really applaud that, and it's really an example of, let's say, the efforts, and I think also that the publication office are doing in making all that data more available and not unimportantly also accessible to the wider public. So that's our journey so far. And what's next, right? I think, how do we go from here? I think, and it's probably not that different than from with others, and maybe Dimitris has views on that. But what do we want to do? You want to find new use cases. In our case, we want to more make the legislative decision-making process, so legislative timelines, more transparent. We want to start building models about the importance of stakeholders or decision makers, and build some logic around that, or the importance of certain issues, so that citizens and journalists and other organizations better understand, let's say, what goes on and how decisions are actually made at a European level. And based on the following from these new use cases, we need to connect to other open data sets. And, there's it was already mentioned, data.europa.eu. There's loads of data sets there, ERLEX, and then also, I think, supporting, let's say, technology provided by the publication office, such as EU vocabularies and ontologies, etc., are extremely useful in building those new, let's say, digital applications that are going to serve those use cases. And I think also important to note here is that in the area of machine learning and AI, we are also then need to build new NLP models. Everybody knows about large language models and ChatGPT and how can we use it. I think where the direction is that for specific use cases, you will need to build your own and train your own NLP models. Because ChatGPT, just like that, is not going to help you. There's a lot of things that you need to do in order to make machine learning or AI helpful for you, relevant to your specific use case. And therefore, you have to build, maybe on top of ChatGPT or with the help of let's say, large language models, you need to build your own models. And that's what we need to do as well. For example, about summarization of legislation, or text-to-speech and speech analysis, and those kind of things. So that's what we are. That's, let's say, the journey ahead, so that we can roll out those use cases. Let me go to the next slide, which is about what can we improve. Yeah, and I'd like to have a discussion around that. So what can we improve? A lot was already mentioned by Maria, and I fully agree with what she was saying. So let me just maybe speak to it from my side. There's a lot of improvements that can be done, and it's never enough, I think, in our space when it comes to data and unlocking data. But just a couple of points. In my view, there's three categories. From the user's perspective, and users can be anything, right? It can be we are Lobian, we are a user of open data, but also we as a community, we need to better understand what the user needs are, because if we improve, then we can move faster to solving those problems that benefit the wider EU. So we is also EU citizens and national, local governments and government agencies across the continent. And a rising tide will lift all boats, I think is the idea here. So better understanding of your user needs is really important, and define your use cases. If we then turn to, let's say, the EU institutions and how can they provide better open data to the users such as us, there's a couple of things. I think in general, we can look at more availability of data. So there is data, but it's not available yet. I'm specifically looking at the European Council, and I think a lot of people agree with me that we can probably ask the Council to open up more their data, so we can have a better understanding of their decision making. From the EU Parliament, I already mentioned there's a lot has been done, but more can be done. One of the things that I've been asking the Parliament to do is unlock data in better formats. So we need, for example, the XML format of certain data, like the amendment data. Now we need to scrape everything from Word and PDF documents. And that means that we are missing information that is available in XML format, but not in the formats that we currently can use. And I think there is maybe also they can extend the API that they have now, just not the lists of things, but also really going into the let's say, relationship and metadata of the data that they provide. And lastly is the European Commission. So improve the have your say data in terms of the process of when you unlock that data, the consultations, the data that you produce, and also create, let's say, better ways of reusing that data, because the way the Commission publishes that data is in formats that are very badly, poorly able to reuse. As a normal citizen, it's very difficult to actually reuse all that data. I mean, we as a Lobium, and I've got, we are a team of 10 technical, digitally well-versed people. We already have problems in ingesting that data and trying to parse it and understand it and clean the data. So that would be really useful. So standardizing formats across all documents within the EU institutions would be great. And I think that's a horizontal ask. I think so. Standardizing formats, clarifying file hierarchy for, let's say, better data association. And I think that's where, and that's what Maria, I think, also mentioned, interoperability. And my point is also data, open data and open data sets are becoming really valuable when you're able to combine them. So interoperability between data is extremely important, and therefore standardizing formats and rich metadata that describes the data that you publish is very important. And then secondly is, that also will help with, let's say, building those relationships with certain data sets, which we create value with. And I think for the publication office, we probably need more help with, let's say, guidance, documentation in terms of, for example, how to use the RDF format. Combining data sets is really important. RDF is a good standard, but we need more examples and resources how to do things, how to use things, and so on. And lastly, also in terms of NLP modeling and using of machine learning and AI, help with pre-processing of data sets. Pre-processing of data is probably one of the most time-consuming things there are. And Dimitris, hopefully you agree with me. So I think it's really important to get more help with that. I think is one of the things that I wanted to say. So I'll leave it at there, Inma. And if there are any questions, then happy to answer.
Yes, Tim, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm very happy to see that you have up and running and live projects happening. Maybe later, if it's accessible for everyone, you could share this EU Parliament Analyzer, because I guess that the audience and also me will be very interested to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you touch upon very interesting points regarding the importance of digital transition for a green future and to fight climate emergency? But also on the importance of understanding users' needs and having feedback loops in order to improve our services. And there is something we value a lot from your lessons learned from your project, and also recommendations also for institutions. I have to see that we're working on that, and with projects such as the one of Maria Claudia, we are trying to provide tools to public administration to improve the way they use the data, and they try to build up innovative solutions with it. So as I understand this, your application is to help, the initial idea was to help journalists, but you mentioned that it can be to further inform citizens about the decision-making process of the institutions. So who are if you can elaborate a bit more, do you know your stakeholders and the users of this platform, of your platform, of your product, to interact with them, or?
Yes, I think our users and our stakeholders are anybody who is interested in decision making at the European Union level. So I already mentioned journalists, because they need that.
Mm-hmm.
They need better data and better intelligence to write articles about decision making processes. But think tanks and academia is also really interesting for them, because with that data they can do better research and have data that we have, which is actually quite difficult to get. And if I, for example, the European Parliament analysis, we have now all the data, all the amendments in our system from back to 2011. So what we can do is, or what researchers can do, is they can now look at the data and start to find patterns, let's say political patterns based on, let's say, historical amendment data, because we've all put that in a database at the moment. And the same goes for national governments or local governments who are impacted by EU-based EU level legislation, for them to understand earlier what is coming to them, so that they can better prepare for getting ready for when the legislation is being passed and implemented. And of course, also other private parties like trade associations and companies have the same ask. So our stakeholder field is quite broad in that sense. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. We have other questions, but we can place them for the panel discussion. So I would like now to move forward to Dimitris. So the floor is yours to explain the 100 Europeans. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ima, and thanks for inviting me to speak here. So we went from creating infrastructure and extracting data to using modern tooling to analyze this data. And now I will talk a lot about what can we do to communicate this data and how can we empower citizens through that in a way. So this is about stories. So let me start by telling you a story. So it was about end of 2019, start of 2020, when I very embarrassingly admitted to myself that I do not know a very basic metric, that is the unemployment rate. I asked myself, but what do we mean when we say unemployment rate, right? So when we say that Germany has a 6% unemployment rate, what exactly do we mean? Do we mean that 6% of the population doesn't work, or what exactly does this number represent? I know most of you probably know this, but hey, back then I didn't. So I went through the usual workflow back then when ChatGPT was not yet available. So I went through Wikipedia, I went to the OECD website, I went to Investopedia, which is something more familiar with economics and financial analytics. And I found, I did find the definition, but it was very different way of communicating it. So I just wanted to understand how we get to the metric of the unemployment rate. And I found, more and more data information that I didn't need. Like, for example, that unemployment is a lagging indicator. I didn't even know what that is. So that wasn't the most important thing I wanted to learn out of this. And then on the OECD, wait, my slides are being automatically then. Sorry for that. But so on the OECD website, this is the first graph that you get when you look for unemployment rate. So after looking through a lot of different sources, I did come to the answer I was looking for. And in case you didn't know, unemployment rate resembles out of all these people in the age to have a job, it's not those who don't have a job that is unemployment rate. It's those who don't have a job but actively look for one. So essentially, it concerns the percentage of people who want to find a job but currently don't have one. So they actively send CVs, they look for work, and so on. So if you are a student, then you're not measured in the unemployment rate. But back then, my ego was quite high, and I said that if I don't know this, then perhaps there's a lot of people out there who also do not know this. So I started speaking with friends and family who are more in the economics side of things, where they, of course, know this stuff. But we started discussing that there is a problem out there, that very, very fundamental and very fundamental phenomena that happen in Europe are very hard to understand, and it's not very easy to find the sources, and they are communicated with graphs that look very, not very modern, like 3D pie charts and all that. And so we asked ourselves, what else do we not know? And of course, there are many, many things that we don't know. And so we decided to create this website called gridsandfigures.com, where we analyze and we basically try to explain this phenomena in very simple words, very simple graphs, very clear communication, basically. And we do this for the Greek audience, right? So for the past 2 years, we've been dealing with that, and it went quite well so far. Of course, these are not scary numbers on the European level, but you also have to consider that this is addressed to a Greek audience, so it is all in the Greek language. But it's been going quite well, and perhaps most importantly is the feedback we've been getting that we do indeed use simple words, we do use concise descriptions, and our graphs look quite nice in their simplicity. So it's been going well so far, but then I lost my slides. Am I back? Yeah. Can you hear me still? Yeah. Okay. So, oops. Yeah. So, but then, okay, it went well, but it's still very old school, if you ask me. So it still looks, our website looks like the Wikipedia website. There is a lot of text. There is a lot of reading you need to do to get the information that you need. So it still looks quite what the web looks like today or in the past decades. But then a big challenge for Europe is to make it fit for the digital age. And I think the first thing we need to ask when we talk about the digital age is, first of all, what is it? And what is the digital age? And where does it actually take place? Okay, so what do we mean by digital place? Where will we find those people who are in the digital world? And if we were to take a snapshot of today's and maybe in futures digital workplace, then what we will find is that, well, first of all, Instagram has almost half of the population in Europe is on Instagram today. And as if you don't know, Instagram is a social media that does not rely at all on text. It's purely image and video based. And then, of course, the new kid in town, the new cool kid is TikTok, where currently more than 150 million users are in Europe use it. And if you don't know this, I don't have people on my circle who use TikTok actively, yet if you go to the younger generations, then almost everyone is on there. Okay, so this is where the digital data, sorry, this is where the digital world happens. But then where does communication happen for big challenges that Europe faces or the world in general? So take, for example, climate change, and you will see that, well, we have the IPCC report. Every year we have millions and millions of infographics and data sets that deal with this, but they use a language that is kind of not very well understood, right? If I didn't know what unemployment is, then you're very sure to know that I don't know what air pollution particles mean. So what does this exactly mean for me as a person, as a European? The same goes for the sea temperature, mean surface temperature, which is increasing. But is that good thing? Is that a bad thing? Or how does this affect me? I am not 100% sure. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you are also asking yourselves, like, what is this? And how is it useful to take action? And that's because open data is available, but there is one more step that I think is needed to get people to be engaged, to get citizens to be engaged through insights and through more effective communication. And so we try to confirm this, and we built a quiz. We used our reach to invite people to take our quiz, where we asked questions that are regarding, we think, challenges that Europe will face in the future. And this was a multiple choice quiz, right? So many answers can be also random. But we saw that for many big challenges, we don't know exactly what it means to us. So we don't know exactly if, for example, the population of the European Union is going to increase or reduce in the next decades. So we said, well, perhaps maybe we can change that. Maybe we can do better in communicating this challenge. And this was around the time where the EU Datathon, or last year's EU Datathon was announced. So we said maybe this is a great opportunity for us to test our idea and see what other people think about this concept. And here's the concept that we came up. It's called the 100 Europeans, and it's not very innovative, not very, doesn't use new technologies, but it basically what it says is, let's reimagine the European Union as a community of just 100 people, right? No one else, 100 people. So the first question that we ask is, where would these people live if that would be the case, right? Because we do like to talk about the EU as a universal, I don't know, well-connected and one concept of citizens. But the reality is that out of those 100 people, only 2 of them would live in Portugal, for example, while almost 20 of them would live in Germany. So this concept makes us better understand what are the different power imbalances in the Europe. And when we say European Union, who exactly do we mean by these people? But even if the 100 people who live in Europe are scattered in different places, the reality is that if Europe was only 100 people, then 78 of them would be severely affected by climate-related disasters. And we do believe that this is a more effective thing to communicate to people when it comes to climate change than is emissions or particles in the atmosphere or the rising temperatures. Because this is the first thing that you need to know in order to take action, is that this is an important issue, an important problem that we need to deal with when it comes to climate change. So this is the basic concept. And then one other thing that we try to solve is that basically we asked, okay, how do we consume content these days on the internet, right? It used to be that there are huge pages of text and you go through them and you read them and you spend a lot of time on it. But nowadays, this is not how people use the internet. Most of the people don't even go to websites anymore. They go to their social media and they get their news from Twitter, for example. And in order to consume information, they go on TikTok and they go on YouTube or on Instagram, and all they do is they scroll, right? All we do is scroll. So all day you can spend scrolling and looking at videos, and these videos do not last long. They are not 10-minute explainers, for example, on what unemployment is. They usually last a few seconds. So the attention span is very short. We have 10 seconds to get people's attention, and I don't think you will get it if you communicate basically that the Earth's surface temperature is increasing. So in the 100 Europeans website, it's still a website, not yet on the social media. What we try to do is we try to mimic this approach. So basically, we try to mimic the endless scrolling that people do on TikTok and on Instagram these days. And we also try to mimic the bite-sized information. So basically, no matter how much time you spend on the 100 Europeans website, either it is 10 seconds or it is 10 minutes, you will still get something out of this. Because the moment you go, the first thing you learn is one of the big facts that relates to those big challenges. Okay, but this is just one step. I do believe that in order to do this the right way, we need more and more steps together. And we have defined 4, let's say, main pillars to achieve better communication of the big challenges that we face. One of them is, of course, that it has to be available in all European languages. And so far, our content has been available, I think, in 10 European languages, but still there is a lot yet to do. It should be smooth to use on mobile because more than 70% of today's traffic is happening on mobile. People don't go to websites on their laptop anymore. It needs to be easy to share to social media because that's where all communication happens these days, as I told you before. And then what we would like to have is a call to action from organizations. So we would like to people who are interested to learn more, they get the basic information from 100 Europeans, but then they can use call to actions from organizations that care about those things, where they can engage with them and where they can basically learn more information and try to act upon it. So in order to conclude my remark, I ask permission from the Data Europa and the Publications Office people to perhaps expand the message of a Europe fit for the digital age. three dots, with open data, of course, with good infrastructure, of course, but with also simple and relatable communication. And in my opinion, in the 100 Europeans' opinion, this can be done by telling good stories. But of course, this is not the only way we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dimitris, for the presentation. Indeed, I think that it's very important that the work that you are doing, that you are simplifying indeed complexity by bringing this sample of 100 Europeans, 100 citizens for better understanding of people. But at the same time, we shouldn't like leave behind the importance of data visualization and data communication, because at the end of the day, not everyone are data scientists, experts who can translate this data into powerful insights, but we have to make it available in a way that they can directly spot important information. So thank you very much, Dimitris. Very, very, very nice presentation. So let's move very quickly to the panel discussion. We had very interesting questions, and I wanted to thank, first of all, Maria Claudia, team, and Dimitris for this wonderful presentation that bring together very important projects to boost a Europe fit for a digital age, and it somehow open data is reflected in all these projects. They showcase different products for different type of stakeholders, but at the same time they can work together in certain manner. My first question would be to you, Maria Claudia, and it comes actually from the audience. So we got some questions regarding what happens after the 6 months, because we saw that it's a pilot project. But if someone uses the pilot, what happens afterwards? There's going to be a transition to their own platform, or what do you envisage after these 6 months?
Yeah, thanks, Immaculata. Basically, the idea behind these 6 months is that in 6 months you can clearly define the scope of your prototype and proof of concept, and
Mm-hmm.
this will help us, the public administration, to precisely define what they want after the 6 months. When we are reaching the end of this duration time, we are going to support you with a sort of exit package, we call it. So basically, where we are going to export what you did, what you developed, and also support you in a transition to your own environment. That's
Okay.
also why we are going to open, hopefully very soon, all the code behind the big data test infrastructure. So very soon you are going to have the repository under code.euro.eu that you can easily fork and you can easily re-implement in-house. So you can build the same infrastructure that you are going to use in the 6 months, but on your cloud provider.
Okay, so as I understand, the follow-up also would be to have all this information available on data.europa.eu as is a single entry point to this information. Okay, thank you very much for this. I also heard that you mentioned, I also read that you mentioned the high value data set and how this project can potentially help to these specific priorities in we are now. And since we have now the implementing regulation high value data sets, and countries are moving towards how they can implement it and how can they spot these high value data sets, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that. How do you see that this tool can really support high value data set implementation?
Yeah, I see that the big data test infrastructure can help on different direction. On the data provider side, so basically on the public administration side, one of the main ideas is to help them try to create maybe a data quality feedback loop, or also
Mm-hmm.
some sort of processes in the backend to really move their data that probably are not now already available via API, and to clean and improve the quality of their data. So this is more from the data producer side. On the other side, if you are a public administration and one of the main goals of the high value data set is to improve cross-border interaction, maybe between different member states that are trying, you are maybe a startupper, you are trying to create an app, and you are trying to put together data from mobility from France, Italy, and Spain. The big data test infrastructure, together with the public administration, can help you in understanding if this data could be connected each other, and to create a very first basic maybe prototype of your product based on the data from the high value data set. These are two of the main examples that I have in mind, but I would personally would be more interested in looking at the quality of the data from the public administration side, and also in order to define use cases with public administration on the cross-border dimension. So sharing the
Mhm.
same information at semantic level that are interoperable, semantic but also technically. So this could be a very good use case for the big data test infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria Claudia. Indeed, I think that now we're moving with different pieces of legislation that are passing, like the Data Governance Act, the Data Act in the future, and also like the Haber data system. We have to see how we can actually, the Commission can help them also on the implementation in the, like with a forward-looking approach. So I fully understand your point. Also, the fact that you were mentioning with your conversation that it's very important to break the data silos and cleaning up the data. That is something for which we have data.europa.academy, and we have tools like the big data infrastructure project.
Mm.
Okay, good. So moving with Tim and Dimitri, because you have in somehow this like different type of goals and target audiences, I would say somehow. Um, my first question would be, how do you think that the publications office can support you on this on your projects currently now, and how do you think that public administrations can help in the future? I know that team provided like some sort of list, a checklist of to-do list, and actually they're very helpful for us, and also with the public institutions that are here with us today. But how do you think that actually the publications office could support you on this in the future?
Shall I go
Yeah,
first?
we yes, you can start, Tim, of course.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think support is I think key. You're already doing a lot of that. Organizing this webinar series is an example. Newsletters that you publish, projects, open projects where you collaborate, where you lead the collaboration with other interested teams and people. Documentation on your website. So I think, yeah, documentation and support for non-experts is maybe another thing. If I look at my own company, we are experts in software, but not really in the EU decision-making process. Well, I am, but if you look at your average back-end or front-end developer, they are not. So documentation and understanding, let's say, the technical developers, how, let's say, the data relates to the decision making process and the things that are going on at the EU policy level, public administration level, in layman's terms, is good. And I think the other way around is as well, because a lot of people that want to develop use cases do not understand the technical side of it. So if you look at, let's say, governments who want to open up their data, we need to, let's say, improve their skills and capabilities of how to do that. Just explain the basics in layman's terms about what is an API or what is metadata and why metadata is important and all those kind of things. So because we're working in a very complex area, mixing, let's say, digital skills with public affairs skills, and it's really difficult. There's not a lot of people that have those skills together. So I think the publication office has a good has its work cut out for that, I think. So that will be my answer to that. Dimitris.
It's interesting that I made a note of one of the slides that Tim showed, that because I think that's an important thing to communicate as publication offices, indeed, how decisions are being made in the EU and how to make this more transparent. So I think I add +1 to this point, but perhaps more to the 100 Europeans context. I do think that we are in a very good state on understanding what is good content for social media to be shared regarding those things. But we do believe that this should go beyond social media. And one of the ideas we had is that we could use our concepts to explain things even to organizations, for example, or to people within the European Union who might not be aware of these things, to make it easier to understand. So it would be nice if the publications office, who does this much more than we do, has some guidelines on how to approach this communication, not more towards the social media public, but also to within stakeholders in the EU and how they would like these issues to be communicated.
Hmm.
I see. I see. Also, Maria Claudia, if you would like to intervene, as you are also experienced data scientist, regarding the point of on how to support you. I mean, as I understand that you will, how are you planning to communicate one from Dimitris, like from 100 Europeans? Are you planning to be active on social media directly, or just to provide what are exactly the steps that you are seeing? If you can be more concrete, so we can see.
Yeah, we are active already on social media with Christian Figures, and we do plan to expand it also to 100 Europeans. But we want first to make it. We do believe that making the website technically sound is very important, because we
Hmm.
want to go beyond social media, which is good, but it's still passively consuming information. But we also want to make citizens more engaged so that they actively take part. So we will be on Instagram and TikTok soon.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
If I may, just to comment, maybe Dimitris, you probably well know the project from Gapminder, no? That is
Yeah.
basically one of the best data visualization tool I usually show in my lectures, when where basically basic statistic like GDP or many others are really simplified and really, really reusable. So I think your idea probably also took some inspiration from that project. That to me sounds the best one. And also, when you were mentioning, you were looking around for a definition. You didn't mention Eurostat, but if you look at Eurostat, they are also very good in explaining statistic. There is a specific section that is
So,
statistics explained, if I'm not wrong, where they
mhm.
try to, tell normal people that are not experts and not statisticians how these measures are calculated and also the meaning behind. So maybe this is another input for your product.
Yeah, no, I agree. Gapminder is great. But I do think it it is directed towards an audience who can understand the basic correlations, for example,
Mhm.
which I don't see as being true in general people who don't work with data. On Eurostat, I think they're doing a great job, especially on Instagram. They are very active and they communicate a lot. 100 Europeans is more directed towards a concept of the 100 Europeans and towards big
Mhm.
challenges for the future. So it takes it a bit more towards forward looking, let's say. So that's where I think it's the space to exist.
Yeah.
I see. I see. Yeah, and somehow what you're mentioning is linked to what Tim was saying before about the fact that sometimes there's like we can't find sometimes some sort of knowledge gap, no, because like we see that the job profiles and the type of competencies that you need for your work are changing. So public affairs journalism has to be connected to data visualization and data processing, and these are things that we have to keep up and keep learning and keep the curiosity somehow to be adapted to the new technology. So it's a very important point that we also educate the audience on that. Regarding the users and how you interact with your user, with your stakeholders, Tim, we had a question regarding your project with the European Parliament. We are in contact with them, and I'm sure they will be very grateful for you for this project and all your feedback.
Mhm.
Um, are you in touch with them directly on your needs? Do you have like a direct interaction with them on how to find solutions to your application? And another question separate is that do you publish the data on a public repository such as GitHub?
You mean contact with them, the European Parliament itself?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yes, we have been in contact with them at the start because the first thing that we needed to do was to actually understand the data that they provide, that they
Mm-hmm.
open. So I mentioned in the case of amendments, they are published in PDF format and in MS Word format, which is not really ideal from a, let's say, machine readability perspective. And then the accuracy of the data and what we can get is not that great. So we got in touch with the European Parliament, the organization itself, the directory, the director general of digital, to ask for that to be opened up in XML, because we know the format is already there, right? The European Parliament uses AT4AM as their system for creating those amendments, and but then that's only internally, and they don't expose it internally. And we were asking, can you expose that at the same time when you publish the PDFs and the MS Word documents, just the same information? And that was in December when I had a discussion, but
Mhm.
I don't see any movement yet. So probably circling that back to the publication office, maybe there's an ask, or we can work together to look at the providers of open data to help us with those kind of things in terms of the requests that we have. Because maybe sometimes we don't find the right person, or we pose the question wrong, and you have more knowledge and relations in that space.
Yes,
Um,
yes, I see.
so yeah, that's one. Do we open up the I think the question was, do we open up the code in GitHub?
Exactly.
We don't. There are GitHub sites from others where they scrape data from the European Parliament, and the code is available. Um, so that we don't. It's almost the same code anyway. I think. But what we do is we open up the results of the data transformation that we do to non-profit organizations and to EU journalists. So that is what we do.
Hmm.
And I think when in this example, when with the Parliament amendments in XML format, then that GitHub page will be moot anyway, because we will have to change it. But as a matter of course, we don't, because we are a for-profit company. But we open up the results side of it, so that people can use the intelligence and the data that we create with that for free.
I see. I see. Also, in case that it might be of your interest on data.europa.eu in the future, we are constantly developing new services. So
Mm.
we will have very soon like a code repository directly on data.europa.eu, and also a competition section where you will be able to compete, and like a public administration will be able to publish the data and ask companies or SME like SMEs and so on, or
Oh,
in
cool.
your case
Yeah,
to participate. So this is something that may come up in the future. So
yeah.
we will keep you updated on that.
Just one little point, what Maria Claudia was saying about the big data initiative. That's also talking about my first point about let's say, the knowledge gap. On the one hand, the technical knowledge gap with the governments that need to open up their data. And I think it's really interesting, and I'm open to anybody listening today to come up with ideas or partnerships where we, as the Lobium team, can work with a local government or anybody else interested to go into the sandbox and try out a nice idea or a use case that we maybe can bring to life. I'm really happy to do that. So if anybody's interested, just send me an email to tim@lobium.ai.
More than welcome, Tim. I will be very happy to receive some proposal.
Cool.
Good. Yeah, keep the conversation going. Unfortunately, we don't have much time. Even I would like to. I would have stayed a coffee and more talk to you, because it was very interesting. But okay, so thank you all very much. So I have to say that I was very surprised about the project and what can be done by Lobion and by 100 Europeans. Like, these are very insightful tools that can also serve as an inspiration to our audience to see what can be done with open data. And this also can serve as an inspiration for them to move forward and to use this data, and also to give a feedback, as you were doing now, on how public administration can improve on providing this data to you in a more interpretable format. But at the same time, we have the aspect of Maria Claudia Bodin that was touching upon how to provide services to public administrations, which is also something very important, because sometimes team in even we have some silence from some public administration, doesn't mean that we are not listening to you, but it means that there's some work in the background on how to improve it. right?
Yeah.
So that's why. But let's keep everything together for the future, and let's try to move forward in the same direction. So I want to thank everyone very much for the contribution. It was a great way to close this series. Um, so just to like a brief recap. So we will have more activities before the summer break. So in case you are interested, we will have the continuation of the series on the Open Data Maturity Report, diving deeper into the portal dimension. So in this specific case, we're inviting some countries, official representatives from different countries, to explain how they were advancing on the portal dimension, what are the different strategies that they established for that, and so on. So um, I really suggest you to go to this talk. It doesn't matter if you're a public administration or like academia and so on. I think it's very insightful also to interact with official representatives to know what they did and how they interact with the users. Uh, as we were mentioning, you can follow us on newsletter, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, because we are constantly advancing on our services, and we would like to keep in touch with you. And then just please take a couple of minutes to fill in the feedback, because this makes us improve in the future. So I'm leaving this slide, so you can use this QR code to provide feedback. But again, Dimitris, Tim, and Maria Claudia, if, I would like to thank you so much for closing up this series with such an wonderful projects. We keep in touch for sure in the future. This is like the first start of a continuation of activities, I hope. And let's keep in touch for the future and see how we can, the Publications Office, support you on these activities. So if you would like to say a few words, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Publication Office, and also to the colleague for the great example of, concretely reusing open data. Thanks again and enjoy your data journey.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks for the Commission and the Publication Office for advancing open data. It's really important, and keep up the good work. So thank you very much.
Now I have nothing to say. That told everything. But thank you for inviting us, and good luck to the other projects.
I also take the opportunity to say that Maria Claudia posted a very interesting event happening this afternoon. I already signed up for it, Maria Claudia,
Oh,
on
thank you.
public administration, on
Great.
public administration and teaching public service in the digital age. So please sign up if you want to, keep learning on this Friday before you close up for the weekend.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.